We are excited to be here with you today. We just hope and pray truly that you're just encouraged today, that you are inspired, that you feel all the more confident to step out and be the leader that you were created to be. And that is our agenda today. It's not to push any other agenda or service or offer. I will let you know about some of that later on. But if anything today, I want you to leave patting yourself on the back, encouraging yourself, and just speaking to yourself on just how awesome you are. I was listening earlier to Mel Robbins. You know, she just released her book, The High Five. And she was saying how before you leave a mirror, you should high five yourself and pat yourself on the back because you're doing a great job. And so today will be full of practical tips, of insight, of things that I am learning and things that I have learned along the way of leadership. But I'm just excited to be here with you today. So welcome. It's so good to have you. A little about myself, and I'll keep this brief. I have been in the ministry for 12 years now. And so when I was 19 years old, to date myself a little bit, when I was 19 years old, I got into leadership, to vocational leadership, leadership as a career. And I was excited to step into it. And I just expected to have a room full of people that had my back. And I expected to have mentorship and coaching and just incredible community around me. But I remember at 19 looking around thinking, like, where is everybody? You know? And if you're a leader, I'm sure you have faced this before. If you've been a leader longer than 17 minutes, you know what this is like. You know, is anybody even going to, you know, connect with me or walk me through this process? And the more that I coach leaders, the more that I realize that leadership, unfortunately, for many people, as myself, and I'm sure you as well, has been very similar to just being thrown into the deep end and just trying to figure out how to swim and hoping along the way by a book or two or by a podcast or two or a webinar or two, you know, you pick up the things that you need for this next season, for the next season. And I just remember feeling that, like, I feel lonely. I feel completely undereducated. I feel inadequate most days, inferior to other leaders, not knowing that they were experiencing the exact same thing. And I just, over the years, I just said, you know what? I'm going to do my part to have somebody's back, to encourage leaders, to inspire them, to equip them with a couple things that maybe, you know, I've learned along the way and things that I'm learning. And I always just want to be sure that everybody within my reach, when they look into you know, the corner of their life, that they have somebody in their corner. They have somebody that has their back. And so that's my only, you know, MO today. That's my only agenda, is for you to know that somebody has your back. And I do want to give you a lot of things you can walk away with today. I don't just want to give you a buffet of information. I want to give you a to-go box. I want you to be able to know how to do it on a Monday morning. I think it's really easy to only speak in principles and through the lens of revelation, specifically with what I do, you know, as a preacher, you know, in my day-to-day, we tell oftentimes people what to do and even throw in why to do it, but we don't really break down how to do a lot of this stuff. And so today, I hope that you do walk away with at least one or two things that will help you in your leadership, in your organizations, and your businesses. And I just really hope that you are encouraged today. So let's jump right into it. Okay, what we're going to cover, just a little kind of ground setting stuff. In part one today, so we're going to break this up in two parts. We're going to go for the majority of this hour. We'll take 5 minutes, and then we'll get into the second bit. So part one is about the leader and the organization. So in other words, the leader and the product. So we're going to talk about who is a leader. Who are we? Why are we? What do we do? Who is a leader? And of course, it will be a pretty general overview because we could talk who a leader is for the next 16 hours and still only call it part one. Who is a leader? And then we're going to talk about building and inspecting from the ground up. So maybe you are brand new in leadership and you are building an organization. Maybe you're somewhere in these phases that I break down, or maybe you already have a thriving or at least established organizations. And we're going to really do a little inspection and assessment today. We're going to talk vision, culture, systems, etc. And I hope that it just speaks to you. In part two, of course, I'm going to talk about team. So every leader needs a team. Vision will always impact and involve others. Okay, it's not just a one way, you just impact, it also involves. And so I just encourage you, before we even get into this, begin to dream bigger and think about team. Maybe you are just a solopreneur on here and it's only you and yourself, or maybe you and a VA that you've hired online and you don't really see yourself as having a team. But I believe that the vision that you have for your company, your organization, it's got to be bigger than you. It's got to be bigger than us. And so we're going to talk about team today. Reasons for team meetings. I love a good meeting. I hate a bad meeting, but we're going to talk about good meetings today, effective meetings, efficient meetings. We're going to talk about how to conduct a staff meeting, how to conduct a team meeting. Okay. And then of course, effective team communication. So let's get right into part one today. I am pumped. Let's do this. Who is a leader? Who is a leader? A leader is someone who moves someone and or something forward. I've made the word forward bold. We are people who move the thing and people forward. You could say a product or person, an organism and organization. We move people forward. We move the organization forward. We don't just maintain. Management implies the maintenance of a thing, but leaders don't just maintain, leaders move. So there's a difference between a manager and a mover. Now, managers have their place, and there are elements of leadership, at least in seasons, to where we ought to manage a thing. And I know, especially coming out of a year like 2020, now we're into 2021, not a whole lot has changed. We're kind of getting back to what some might call normal. Will we ever really return to normal? I don't know what even normal is. There's a new norm, whatever, neither here nor there. But coming out of a year like that, it has shifted everything on how we do leadership. You know, my entire company, Valor, is virtual. I think I spoke, I don't know how many times virtually just over the year 2020. And what an incredible day and age we live in with that. But there are other elements of business and of leadership and your organizations that you felt like, and I felt like we just had to like buckle up and just hold on, hoping that it just survives. And I understand that. So there are seasons to maybe where we just hold on and feel like we are managing a thing. But a leader in the back of their mind and deep in their hearts is always thinking about what's next. How do I move this thing forward? We always have this like chip on our shoulder on how to move it forward. And whether you are a social media manager, consider yourself a leader. How do you move your agency forward? How do you equip more people? How do you, encourage more people online in a social space? How do you move it forward? Maybe you are a pastor. How do you move your ministry forward? Maybe you consider yourself a high-tiered leader of your family. How do you move your family forward? Maybe you work at a coffee shop. How can you leave everything you touch better than you found it? How can you move that forward? How can you bring other solutions maybe to leaders in your life, right? And so a leader is always asking the question, how can I move this thing forward? That is, our focus. That is our aim, not to maintain something, not to stick to the box, not to stick to the status quo, because we've always done it this way. Matter of fact, that those words are the dying words of an organization. If our confession is we've always done it this way, therefore we're going to stick to this way always, and not even consider maybe innovation or getting outside of the box, then I mean, it's my personal conviction and belief is that is a means to an end. Our first response when it comes to ideas and moving something forward is not to replicate what is, but to innovate into what could be. Ask yourself, how can I rebuild the wheel? You know, people say, don't recreate the wheel. I understand that because it's safe. Leadership is a risky thing. It feels like a risk, at least. But my encouragement today is don't be so quick to just jump on, you know, what everybody's saying to do as far as this is the way to do it. This is the will. Don't recreate it. There are some wills you might just need to write out, but there might be some wills you need to innovate. Maybe the will that you are on right now isn't the right will for you. Maybe it's the right will for somebody else, but maybe it's not what you're supposed to be doing in your organizations. So I always think innovation over replication. But leaders are always thinking, how can I move it forward? Maybe we're not moving our organizations forward because we are stuck on the wheel of someone else. Maybe the missing link to move what you need to forward is for you to get some creative idea and innovate, and to do it in accordance to what your organization needs, and not because somebody on YouTube or a podcast said to do it this way. Now, I try to listen and look through the lens of principle. Okay. I'm constantly learning. I'm constantly listening to podcasts and YouTube, et cetera. I'm constantly going to seminars and conferences and this, that, the other, reading books. And I don't always pull out methods. I'm looking deeper into principles, because how can I apply these principles to my organization that's birth the method that I need to pursue? I hope that makes sense. But leaders are always thinking, how can I move this forward? Not just, I want to be safe. I want to play it safe. I want to do what everybody else is doing, and I just want to maintain. Leaders aren't driven by maintenance. Leaders are driven by movement. Okay, so a leader is one who moves someone and or something forward. And I have found that if you focus on moving people forward, the rest will follow. Okay, don't try to just grow a product and look over your team or look over the people that you serve. Okay, leadership's all about people. Nothing more, nothing less. At the end of the day, it's about service to people. We'll get into that here in just a few minutes. Or right now, one who develops other leaders is a leader, not aims for more followers. Okay, now, should we have a social media strategy? Should we, be intentional about growing that and investing in that? Sure. But that's not our number one aim. Our aim is to develop people. And if you have people on your team, your aim is to develop other leaders. Okay. I've seen leaders with incredible products, but they completely overlook the very people that make the product happen. And their turnover rate is out of this world, completely unnecessary. So our aim as leaders ought to be, I want to keep people in this thing for the long haul. I want them to enjoy their job and career and being a part of this culture, being on this team. So our aim is not to, gain followers. Our aim is to develop people and to serve people. The rest will come. What needs to happen will come. I know people right now with a following on social media of, 150 people, but their business is so much more impactful and profitable than most of the other people that I follow, because they actually understand what depth and real impact can do. So if you're watching this and you don't have that many followers, don't be you know, distraught or dismayed because you might be making a real impact on people's lives. Okay, so leadership is just about people. It's about serving people. It's not about you. It's not about your name. It's not about your brand. It's not about your product. It's about how can you impact people in a very deep way? How can you make their life more easier? How can you serve somebody and make their life more fulfilled? Now, of course, I'm talking about clientele, customers, congregation, whatever that translates as, and of course, your team. But we ought to just serve all of them. People, right? This is leadership. It's about people, not about the leader. Okay. Who is a leader? One who has influence by the way of service, not by title. John Maxwell, if you're watching this, I'm sure you know who John Maxwell is. John Maxwell said, positional leadership is the lowest and weakest form of leadership. Positional leadership is the lowest and weakest form of leadership. In other words, case in point, if I have to walk into a room, slam my hand on the table and say, you do what I say because this is my position and I sign your checks. Here's the thing. You have no real leadership. You've only positioned your seat, your title, as being the authority, but that's not real leadership. That's weak leadership. That is leadership that's is fear-based, and nobody wants to work and serve with somebody like that. So leadership is about service. It's about how much value can you bring to people. That's what gets you influence. So leadership comes about by the way of influence. The unseen power of leadership is influence. John Maxwell said, leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. So how do you have influence in someone's life? By bringing them value. How do you bring somebody value? You serve them. This is the concept of servant leadership. It's not leveraging my seat or leveraging my title. It's simply about serving someone. I know people on different staffs who have a very low tier leadership position, but have way more influence in the organization. They are leading without being in charge because they know how to serve people. Matter of fact, their voice is louder than the actual CEO's voice in their life because they actually have real influence and not this leveraged positional type of, leadership. Okay. So leadership is about service. Servant leadership. A leader is one who grows and guards their character. Okay, one who grows and guards their character. Character still matters. Oh my goodness, character still matters so much. Character is who you are within. It's who you are within. And it's really easy, especially in a day and age to where everything is filmed, everything is, shots on a camera. Everything is so gift-based and craft-based and charisma-based that we oftentimes as leaders, we get locked in on, okay, how much can I grow my craft and develop my craft? And how can I make my charisma even, more attractive? We really lock in on that, all the while neglecting character. And if we only focus on that, now we should develop craft, etc. We should develop, if you're a speaker, develop your speaking abilities. Singer, take some lessons. If you like to knit, go do a course. Develop that. That's great. We should be good stewards of the gift that we have been given when we were, created. We should, but that is not at the, neglect of your character. You need to develop who you are. We need to develop who we are as leaders on the inside. Because what happens if we focus on this, the craft, the loud, what people see, and we neglect who we are within, it reminds me of the unfortunate circumstance of a sinkhole. A sinkhole. What we do is we build civilizations on top of vulnerable, hollow places beneath the surface. And it's only a matter of pressure and of time before what we call a sinkhole happens. That city, and we've seen it time to time, cities and buildings and streets, they will cave in because what was beneath couldn't sustain what was on the outside. And I've seen leaders, and I've even been, in certain seasons, I've had to come face to face with this myself, that too much pressure, even good pressures, the pressure that your gifting can bring, the pressure that, struggles can bring, good tensions, bad tensions, etc. If we don't focus on who we are all the more within as leaders, and I know this isn't like a sexy thing to talk about on a leadership call, but I just wanted us to get on the same page and talk about this today. We need to be sure that we are, operating in the spirit of honor and of excellence and of integrity, and we mean what we say, and we say what we mean, and we fulfill the word that we give people, that we're faithful with our task, that we're honest, that we're authentic, character type things that matter. So yes, we ought to develop our craft, but all the more I encourage and I implore all of us today to be sure that we develop who we are on the inside all the more, so that when pressure comes, because leadership is full of pressure. Now we know that a lot of the leadership pressure, pressure is a privilege. I get that. But we just got to be sure that when it does come in whatever form, whatever fashion, that who we are within is able to sustain it. Okay. So character over craft. Develop both, but all the more develop and solidify, fortify your character. Okay. So guard it. Don't let anything in that doesn't need to be there. Push out what doesn't need to be there. All right. So a leader is one who grows and guards their character. A leader is one who is committed to intellectual growth. Intellectual growth. Constantly reading, gleaning, learning, listening, asking other people questions, other leaders in your life, getting counsel, listening to podcasts consistently. One who is committed to intellectual. There's nothing like a leader who is constantly being a student, right? Student for life. That's what I tell myself. I'm a student for life. I can learn from the good, bad, and ugly. There's a lesson in everything. There's a lesson in this microphone right now. There's a lesson in this call right now. There's a lesson in these trees outside. There's a lesson in the podcast that's waiting, in my car right now. There's a lesson on the leader in my life who I got on speed dial. I don't think we have speed dial anymore, but you get my point. If you're anywhere close to my age, you know what speed dial is. All right. So one who is committed to intellectual growth. We have what's called a growth mindset over a fixed mindset. A fixed mindset says, I have only a certain capacity in my mind, in my intellect. And when I hit that, that's it. It's like a fence around your mind. And once I hit that capacity, that's it. I can't grow anymore. But a growth mindset says, I still got room to go. I still got room to grow. I will always pursue intellectual growth. I know that I can constantly get smarter and get sharper and get wiser. And I like to, so of course, in this organization, I am the CEO, but I also want to be the CLO. And this is what we all ought to be in our organization, is the CLO. I love somebody that's on this call right now. I was on your profile the other day, and you said that you're the CEO, the Chief Encouragement Officer. I believe you worded it like that. And I love that. And I'm going to adapt that because that's, or adopt that because I think that's absolutely brilliant. But we ought to be the CLO of our organizations, the Chief Learning Officer. Chief Learning Officer. I have my assistant with me right now, Leah. She is super wise, very smart. And she is constantly pursuing personal development and growth as well. And I know that, and I love that. And that's why she's part of this team, because we really value in this culture. We are constantly learning. We're not going to ask you to do anything that we're not doing. But because I know that I'm going to have a team of learners and of very sharp people, it constantly holds me accountable to be all the more the learner in the room, the CLO. And I have this little funny, friendly competition. I refuse as the CEO to let Leah outlearn me. Now, if she's smarter than me, that's great. Awesome. If she isn't and she's about to be, that's awesome. And I'm not going to be discouraged when she is. She's probably already smarter than me. But when I acknowledge that, I'm not going to be discouraged, like beat myself up. It's just a little friendly thing. It's a fun thing, but we ought to be the CLO of our organization, whatever that is to you. Okay. So constantly pursuing intellectual growth. That's what a leader does. That's who a leader is. One who is committed to intellectual growth, is always coachable, always a student, always a learner. That's a leader. A leader, who is a leader? One who operates in honor and in excellence always. Let's talk about honor. Honor goes up, down, all around. Honor goes up, down, all around. So you don't just honor. I know that somebody has real honor. I'm about to ruffle some feathers. I know somebody has real honor, not when they honor the leader in their life, but when they can tip nice at a restaurant. Every former person in the waiting industry said amen. One who is able to be honorable to your waiter or waitress, or the associate at the gas station. That's real honor. If it only goes up, quote unquote up, it's flattery. But up, down, all around, that's how I know you have a spirit of true honor. And that matters. A leader honors always. By the way, fun point, you can disagree without dishonoring. You and I can disagree. I'm sure if we went deep enough, we would disagree on something. My wife and I disagree on things. That doesn't mean I have to dishonor her. That just means we disagree. Big deal, right? But you can disagree without dishonoring, and that's okay. So honor goes up, down, all around. And then, of course, operating in excellence. A leader understands that excellence impacts everyone. Mediocrity only impacts some. We might as well be excellent in everything that we do. Okay? A leader understands this. All right, let's get into this part right here. Still part of part one. This is a fun one, a little bit of a visual here, and I hope this helps you. So again, you got to just hear this through your context, and see it through the lens of your current season, your phase, wherever you might be in your process. Lean into the building and inspecting elements of this. Okay, so we're going to talk about building and inspecting from the ground up. One of my favorite teachings. Okay, phase one is the foundation. If we were to go build a house right now, one of the first phases would be we build a foundation. You got to have a foundation. So what does an organization's foundation consist of? Number one, vision. Everything leans and relies on vision. Show me someone with no vision, I'll show you someone with no discipline. And vice versa. Show me someone or an organization with no discipline, I'll show you an organization with no vision. So let's cover today, over the next couple minutes, the who, what, when, where, how, why questions of your organization. So vision is essentially where you are going and what you are going to accomplish. Okay, it's the where and what. The foundation, vision. Okay, we're going to talk over 4 pillars in the foundation. What are the ingredients of the cement of your foundation? Okay, so you have to have a vision. More than anything, you have to know essentially what your business is, what you're going to accomplish, your goals, your dreams, whatever it might be. You got to have a vision. Okay. And I said this earlier, but vision will always impact and involve others. Okay. We understand vision impacts, but oftentimes we miss out on the part that it involves others. This company it began with my dream. It was my dream, right? It was me over years praying and strategizing. It was my dream, but that doesn't mean it has to stay with me. If it's truly a dream, I believe from our Creator, which I believe in Jesus. If it was truly, a dream from the heart of God, then it will always involve others along the way. It's bigger than us. And oftentimes as leaders, we dismiss that thought because it's daunting. How do I involve others? How do I grow a team? I don't have the revenue, right? That's real. But here's the thing, have a captivating enough vision, like real vision, not just a vision that you write that's cute and you hope draws people, but a real vision that you really feel like is the thing to pursue. That cry from your heart. It's like when you close your eyes at night, it's what you see. When you wake up in the morning, it's what you see, right? So, okay, vision is where you're going and what you will accomplish. Number 2, mission is the why. You got to have a why. You got to have a why. If this is the heartbeat of everything, why you do what you do, why you do what you do. Why do you do what you do? Think about that for a minute. At the end of the day, why does your agency exist? Why does your organization exist? Why do you do what you do? Now we know people, but think about that. And one of the things that I do with organizations that I work with is they tell me their vision statement, and then I ask it the question why 5 times. I even do this with my one-on-ones that I have with personal coaching. They'll tell me their personal vision and dreams. Then we just get down to the root level of it all. I ask them why 5 times. So, for example, it would be like, I have a dream to, let's talk on a personal level, to have a big house. Well, why? Well, because I want more room for my growing family. Well, why? You really get down to some real legacy and purpose items in there. I was working with a church the other day, and their vision statement was where many become one. And I love that, by the way. That's powerful. Where many become one. And then I just asked the question. It was an entire team. I asked the question, why is that important? Well, it's important in the kingdom of God. We're family. Yeah, but when somebody's just walking, by the church or driving by, they see that. Why is that important for them? Why is that important for society, for humanity? And of course, I know the reason deep down, but it's important to put it into words. Why? And when you can connect the why to the what, you'll be willing to do whatever it takes to get that, because it's the why. It's the very heartbeat. It's the central thing that you're pursuing. If I could just refer to the Bible for a minute, David, when he was a teenage boy, most of us know the story of David and Goliath, whatever faith you're from watching this. David was a little teenage boy, and he ran out to fight this giant named Goliath that was 9 or 10 feet tall. And when everyone else was laughing at him, when everyone else didn't understand his vision of slaying the giant, his very family was laughing at his vision that he had for slaying the giant. But what was David's response to everybody laughing? He said, is there not a cause? Is there not a why? Is there not a mission? Why we do what we do? So it's really key to identify whatever vision you have for your organizations. Ask it, why? Why do we truly exist? And when you can connect those two, you'll work differently. You'll lead differently. You'll serve differently. You'll love differently. You'll impact deeper. Okay, so mission is the why. Don't lose sight of this. When we lose sight of this, it's the beginning of the end. We'll probably experience some sort of burnout along the way when we lose sight of the why, because we will only see the what, and the what should be daunting all by itself. It should cause you to pace around your room at night a little bit. But when you attach it to the why, okay, this is why, then you'll be willing to do whatever it takes. Of course, not at the expense of your health and family. We know this. Okay, Next point. So we've covered the where, what, and why. Let's talk about the how and when. Strategy. We need a strategy. How do you do said vision? How do you pursue this vision on a Monday morning? What is your strategy? Oftentimes we write down how to do it, but we don't write down when. Or we write down when we have time and space to do it, but we don't write down how. So you need both and not just either or. We need how and when we're going to pursue this vision and mission. Getting real specific. I do a lot of health metaphors. And so let me just kind of break this down. When it comes to, when people come up to me and they say, I want to, for example, lose 5 pounds. I say, okay, how are you going to do that? I'm start going to the gym. Okay, when? Probably 3 days a week. No, but when? Okay, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. No, when? Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 4:30 when I get off work. Okay, how you going to go? How are you going to get prepared to go? Well, I'm going to, pack my gym bag before I go. Okay, but when are you going to pack your gym bag? Okay, the night before, after dinner, I'm going to make sure my gym bag's packed. Okay, now you got a full plan. Now you got a strategy. Call it extreme, but it's effective. It works. So in the same way, when it comes to your business, your leadership, your organizations, you got to write down a strategy, how and when we're going to do this. And of course, things come up, real life issues come up. Things are always thrown in the wheel of leadership that maybe throw you off, but you can't say up until that point you didn't have rhythm, and you just got to get back on that rhythm. Okay. So we talked about how, when, why, where, and what. Now, I just want to make a reference to this. You need a who. You need a team. We need teams. We cannot do this alone. Maybe in phase 1, you got to get some things set, get some things established, etc. But eventually, we got to have teams. Okay. Believe bigger. Believe you'll have the revenue that comes in to where you're able to hire or contract people. Or just believe, even have crazy faith that people will just believe in the vision so much that they'll be willing to contribute because they see where this thing is going and they understand. They have a revelation, they have an understanding of why you're doing what you're doing. Okay. So we need a team. We can't do this alone. All right. Phase 2, structure and systems. If we were to begin to build a house from the foundation, we start with foundation. Now we are in the structure and systems of the house. So the walls, the roof, the pipes, the electricity. Okay. Every organization needs a good structure and good systems. We cannot apply kind of that thing I was talking about earlier, the concept of a sinkhole. We can't apply weight on a faulty, vulnerable, or broken system and structure. So here are a few questions that we are to ask our current systems and structure. Okay, all the way from, a few examples would be how you are. I keep referencing, social media, because I know that all of you obviously watching this are on social media, but looking at even your system of social media and asking yourself, if this thing were to multiply by 3 times overnight. Now, of course, it's unlikely, but it's how we have to think and plan and strategize, and scheme as a leader. If this thing were to go up 300% overnight, can my systems and structure hold it, or will it break? Will we be all kinds of exposed? Will it be, hard to play catch up with it? Would it put us in a bad place, etc.? So we got to be sure that everything is scalable, which is number 2. So number 1, the first question you got to ask your systems and structure is it effective? Is it even working with what you have right now? If not, then just back up and just stay on that point. Stay on that question. Is it effective? Is how you're posting, etc., I'm using this as an example. Is that even working for you? Okay, if it's working, then great. But if it were to scale up, can it hold it? The demands, the amount of comments, there are so many things now that we can invest in when it comes to, our software, so many different automations, etc., that could easily even replace, not replace necessarily, but be in the place of, at least for a season, team members. So there are scalable, CRMs and, softwares you can invest in to help with this. But asking yourself, is it scalable? My current systems and structure, can more weight be applied? I was hanging out with some people last night, and one of them was a chiropractor, and she was communicating that, she is basically maxed out. Her business is booming. She's an incredible doctor here in town. And I just asked her the question, which she's already, obviously, she's a strategist as well, an incredible leader. I said, okay, how can you scale that up? Because if your schedule's full, how can you go to the next level? I said, would you consider bringing on another chiropractor? And of course, she's already there in her mind thinking through all these things, but asking yourself, is your current model scalable? And of course, she is recreating her model right now to be able to scale. But, like right now, I'm only able to take on because I do a couple other things as career pursuits on top of this agency. Right now I'm only able to take on 3 one-on-ones and have the group coaching that I have, and then the occasional consulting that I'm able to travel with or do virtually. So I was like, okay, well, I want to continue to scale this agency. How do I do it? So I made sure that all the systems in the group coaching was able to scale. That's why I built that model, so that it could scale up and we can impact and reach more people. Otherwise, if I only did one-on-ones, then 3 is my max, because my time and energy is maxed out every week with that. But we built a model called the weekly group coaching, the leadership lounge, that's able to scale up essentially as much as it wants to. But I am thinking about the next phase and the next phase, where my point is, leaders are always a couple steps ahead in thought. Always. My wife, in the evenings, she will turn on her show and I'm over there with a notepad writing business plans. How can I scale this up? What's next? Of course, without neglecting the now and negating the power of now, but always thinking about, okay, what is next? How can I scale this? And how can we reach more people? Okay. So is it effective? Is it even working? If not, stay right there, find something that's effective. Is your current system and is your current structure effective? And of course, we got to get real deep, talk case in points, because everybody's context is different that's watching this. And then number 2, is it scalable? Can it scale up by 3 times? If not, really getting strategic with that and building out a plan for the next season. And number 3, this is a big one. This is huge. Can it work without me? That's a question to ask yourself. Can it work when I'm not working? Can it move when I'm not moving? Here's a good test. Can you go on vacation and your organization still move forward? Now, there are seasons for things. Again, if you are, an entrepreneur, or you're a solopreneur, you're the only one building your company, there is a season for that. I understand it. That's why you need to be a step ahead, because you want to be able to pull away and go on vacation, no matter how much you love your job. Especially if you're an entrepreneur, I assume you pursued your passion. Even if you are absolutely passionate about it, even the best computers need a break. That processing system needs to break. My phone the other day, I have a good phone. My phone the other day wasn't sending texts and it wasn't connecting to things. And it was before Facebook went down and all that. But it was acting funny. And I said, this isn't like this. An incredible phone. All I did was reboot it. I gave it a break for like 60 seconds and it came back just fine. Even the best processing systems and even your most interesting and intriguing pursuits that you have, we all need breaks. That's why it's important to, number 1, take a day off every week, like actually take it off. And then of course, going on vacation. Anyways, that's just a question to ask yourself. Can I go on vacation and have no doubt that my company, my organization, my team is still moving forward. So having systems in place, maybe that requires delegation, maybe it requires some type of, an automated system, etc. But can it work without you working? All right. 3 good questions to kind of go through yourself. Do a little self-workshop with your organization. Maybe get with a coach, or maybe get with some other teammates or some other type of counsel that's in your life, and go through this. Okay, number 3, paint. Paint. In other words, culture. You got to make sure that your organization is the right shade of culture. Culture matters. Culture will eat strategy for breakfast. That's a Drucker quote. It will eat your strategy for breakfast. You can have the best strategy. Matter of fact, you can have good vision, etc. But culture, man, culture matters. Okay. Now, culture, what is culture? It is the harvest of your implemented values. Culture is dictated by your values. You have a value of excellence. You have a value, to be kind, compassionate, to, you have a value for work ethic, etc. Whatever that might be, a good aesthetic, whatever it might be, it is the harvest of your implemented values. In other words, the result of your implemented values, or the lack of. Because culture is a combination of what you create and what you allow. So imagine if you are harvesting crop in a field, and on one side of your field, the crop is in dismay. It's destroyed. It's all dried out. It's all withered up because it wasn't tended to. And you have over here crop that's you have cultivated, and it's nice and it's producing. On one side, you have what you have allowed. The other side, you have what you have created. In other words, what you were passive and unintentional with, and other things that you were very intentional with. We all have this in our culture, a little bit of what we've created and a little bit of what we have allowed. Now, of course, we want to tip the scale into we have all the more of what we have been intentional with, and we don't have very much of what we maybe have allowed or maybe not have seen yet. Now, as a leader, we have to accept the responsibility that we have what we allow. And if you don't want it, don't allow it. Have the conversations you need to have, etc. But culture is a combination of what you create and what you allow. And it is the harvest, the result, the fruit, the produce of your implemented values. Okay, so you got to make sure your organization is the right shade of culture. We could talk way more about this. I would love to have some videos I would love to send you as well on culture. So how do we establish and cultivate culture in our organizations? Number 1, be it. We got to be the culture we want to see. We can't expect our company to have the culture and our team to have the culture that we want unless we are exemplifying it ourselves. Let's not be hypocritical leaders, right? Let's implement those values personally in our own life. Let's be the example. When they get you, they get the company. When they get the company, they get you. It's all value-based. We got to be it ourselves. We got to be that example. Okay. Sometimes all that people need is an example. We got to be the example. Okay. That's number 1, be it. Number 2, brand it. Brand, in other words, put it in a phrase, put it in a word, easy to remember and repeat. To remember and repeat. Put it in, we used to have what was called the commandments of culture, or culture code, or the church I work for now, we call it the 7 distinctives. What distinguishes us? What are our values? Okay, so brand it. Put it in the walls. Put it. We used to have it literally in the flooring of our buildings, and everywhere we looked, we saw these culture code things. So brand it. All right. And number 3, teach it. So teach exactly what it looks like in your specific organization. The way that passion looks at State Farm Insurance is a little bit different than what passion looks like at Disney. So you need to teach exactly what it looks like there. So number 1, of course, you you show it yourselves, but you break that down in a process. This is how we do it here. Okay, so teach it, because people, you say, oh, be excellent. Okay, well, what does that mean? Does that mean wear a suit to work? Does that mean have my car clean every time when I pull up? Does that mean be excellent in speech? Does it mean all the above, or not any of those? What does excellence mean in your organization? So teaching it, making it simple, do the heavy lifting for your team. Okay, that's phase 3. Personal workshop questions. This is something that I do with teams that I absolutely love doing when it comes to culture. Number 1, these are good to write down and maybe do these in your own time. What do you love about your culture? Take a second, just think about that for a minute. What are some things you love about the culture of your organization? Is it, the excellence in speech? Is it the inspiration that it provides? Is it the aesthetic? Is it your team? Do you value kindness? What do you love about your culture? Think about it for just a minute. What do you love about your culture? And then asking yourself, what did I do to create it? In other words, what process did I go by to be intentional with cultivating that? What did you do to create it? What did you do? Okay. And then how can you replicate that? How can you do it again? So what do you love? And then what do you love, or what did you do to create what you love? In other words, to implement that value. And then how can you do that again? How can you replicate it? Because maybe your team that you have today wasn't completely the team that you had 8 months ago. So maybe you had a certain level of your implemented values with your old team, and maybe your new team doesn't exactly know what it is or how to do it, etc. So maybe you need to replicate it. Maybe you need to do it again with your current team. Maybe they're doing a good job, but maybe it's just good to, take it to the next level with them. Okay. How can you replicate it? Next question. What do you want gone? I'm sure you could all think of something right now. In other words, what have you allowed? We got to ask ourselves, what have we allowed in our organizations that we don't want there? What do we want gone? If we don't want it, we don't have to allow it, especially if we're the leader. So what can you do about it this week? What can you do about it this week? Like this very week, when Monday hits, when your office doors open, whether it's digitally or physically, what can you do about it this week? Think about it. Is it a conversation? Is it conflict resolution? Is it getting somebody in the conversation with y'all? Is it, maybe it was a mistake that you made. Sometimes we as leaders got to apologize and humble ourselves. Okay, so what can we do about it this week? And then what would you like to see that doesn't yet exist? So what are some new things that you need to implement? And then thinking through, okay, how can I implement that this week? Getting real practical with it, right? What would you like to see that does not exist? I promise you, if you do this work, it'll work for you. These are three great questions. 3 great questions that you could ask yourself. Okay. Phase 4. We're going to take a break here in a few minutes. Phase 4. Furniture. In other words, the placement of your team members. You don't need to have a refrigerator in the living room. You don't need to have a coffee table in the kitchen. Okay. Team members must be in the right place. Now, that does not mean that all-in team members can't just be where they need to be when they need to be there, especially up front. It's all hands on deck, depending on where you are in your in your phase, in your season. But the end goal is to have the right people in the right place. So furniture being in the right place. How do I know if they are placed correctly? A couple things. Number one, ask, do they enjoy it? Do they enjoy? Does it give them joy? Does it put joy in them to do what they're doing, where you have them doing it? Do they enjoy it? Secondly, are they producing? That's a big one. Are they producing fruit? And are they going above and beyond? You can tell when someone really has joy and passion, when they take initiative, when they do things without being asked to do it, or when they do more than what you've asked them to do. Okay. Are they going above and beyond? So do they enjoy it? Are they producing? And are they going above and beyond? Okay. And phase 5 is operation. That's when you sit back and you just thank God that things are moving and things are healthy, things are growing, they're thriving. That's the fun phase. Cultures at operation, systems are to scale, teams in the right place, vision is set, mission is in motion. That's exciting. That's that good stuff. Okay, let's go ahead and take 5, and then we will regather and wrap this up talking about team. So take 5 minutes, and we will regather here in just a few minutes. All right. Welcome back. Hope everything went well. I feel like Seth Meyers hasn't went back to crowd yet, so he purposely does his monologue. He laughs on himself. Oh, welcome back, everybody. Good to have you. Welcome to part 2. Let's get into this. I hope this is encouraging to you. And just to let you know, I would love to dialogue more about any of this stuff I talked about. I know that mixed in these practicalities, there is a lot of, general kind of blanket information. And I know that you have to be a little bit more intentional in settings like this as leaders to hear it through your lens. So I understand that. And so I'm trying to do as much of the heavy lifting as I can for you. Excuse me. But I know that there are so many different leaders on this call right now. Leaders who stand on stages, leaders who are posting on media, leaders who are in, like I said earlier, coffee shops. We have lawyers. We have a wide variety of leaders. And so I hope it's encouraging. So let's get into this. Conducting a team meeting. It impresses me in the truest form of the definition. And saddens me a bit when I hear that leaders have never been taught how to conduct a team meeting. Matter of fact, I was meeting with somebody the other day, and they were telling me this exact thing. They've been in leadership for years, an incredible leader. But this specific person didn't know how to even lead a meeting. And that's not his fault. And so I just want to break down today on how to conduct a team meeting, or at least why we ought to have meetings. Okay. We should do a whole workshop, Leah, a whole mastermind or master class rather, on just the practicalities of how to lead a meeting. Even set up like a mock meeting in this room or something and just kind of run through it. And I'm no pro at it, but I am passionate about good meetings. And like I said earlier, I hate bad meetings. I don't like meetings that ought to be emails. Amen. 5 reasons for meetings. Let's get into it. Number 1, communication. Oh my goodness. Communication. We'll talk about it in just a couple minutes, effective team communication. But meetings are just an incredible place to communicate, to exchange information with your team, to give them information rather for their understanding. And I've been a part of many teams who have felt under-communicated to, because a leader in the organization expects for people just to pick up on stuff. And that's just not enough oftentimes. And so meetings ought to withhold excellent and effective and efficient communication. Okay, that is one reason for a meeting, and I know that your team will appreciate it. Number 2, collaboration. You want to have a culture of collaboration on your team, in your company. You want to see your team working with one another, and, linking arms and putting their heads and all their wisdom together that they have. And it absolutely is incredible. And that's part of that system that works without you, is when you have a team that knows how to move together and not only moves by the sound of your voice or by your direction, but we really want to build this culture of collaboration, and not just this culture that rises and falls on whether or not you tell them to do something, right? So number 2, collaboration. That is one reason for a meeting. And how it looks practically in the meeting is, if I'm asked a question, and even if I know the answer or I have a response, leaders understand that we don't always need to have answers, especially in settings like this. Sometimes we just need to provoke the room, to ask the room questions, to send it back to them, bounce it back, pass the ball back to them. So if I'm asked, hey, Tyler, what about this? I'll look over at somebody in the room and I'll say, hey, Sam, what do you think about it? And suddenly you are That is you being intentional with the culture of collaboration. The culture that's really teamwork. It's basic teamwork. There's an acronym that I love of team, TEAM. Together, everyone accomplishes the mission. Everyone. It takes everyone. It's going to involve everyone, right? So collaboration. Number 2, that's the reason for a meeting. You want your team to feel together because you're going to go through stuff together, and you want them to know how to link arms and have each other's back. Okay. Number 3, celebration. You replicate what you celebrate. So sometimes your team doesn't know when they've won or when they're doing well. So you take a moment to celebrate them and what they've done, the entire team or an individual. It goes a long way. And then your team will be all the more inclined to replicate, to do that again. Sometimes they don't know that they've won because we haven't commented on it. Not that they need affirmation consistently and all this stuff. And now we ought to affirm as leaders and to encourage. Absolutely. And I'm not saying build necessarily a weak culture of participation trophies. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is you got to let them know when a win was a win. Right? WIN, when a win was a win. Celebrate. And you want that exciting culture too. You want, incentives. Like we used to do this thing called kudos. And we would just go buy a bunch of, it could be as easy as this, go buy a bunch of $10 gift cards, and say, hey, Rachel, you did great this week. Hey, kudos to you. That was an excellent week on social media. We increased by 2%, whatever, kudos. And then you frat snap the room, you give her $10 to Chick-fil-A. It's a culture of celebration and excitement. People want to be a part of something exciting. Okay. So celebration. Number 4, community. Again, this kind of goes with number 2 quite a bit, community. You want people to constantly be linking up and, finding real relationships in the midst of your workplace. It doesn't always have to be just professional without any type of relational equity with one another. You want there to be community, at least in a healthy, thriving culture. Great organizations know how to cultivate community amongst their staff, amongst their team. So community. And number 5, taking a moment as the leader to provide coaching. They are so interested most of the time, if they like you, in what you have to say. People want leadership. They want education. They want encouragement. They want coaching. I want it. You want it. That's why we're here today, right? And we want to learn. We want to grow typically. And so if we just take 5 minutes at the end of a meeting and just provide some form of coaching, not necessarily always correction, although there are times to do housekeeping stuff, like that. And that's needed because, again, we have what we allow, and culture is a combination of what we create and what we allow. We just talked about it. But there ought to be a level of coaching or encouragement or a little bit of a lesson or a teaching or something. And again, not prolonging it necessarily, but just taking a couple minutes and say, here's a thought that I had earlier. Let's meditate on this week. It really goes a long way. So 5 reasons for meetings: communication, collaboration, celebration, community, and coaching. Meetings matter. Meetings matter. Some further thoughts on meetings. Work expands or contracts to the time that is allotted. Only utilize the time that is needed. So meetings expand or contract to the time that is allotted. In other words, if you only need 27 minutes to go through all these, don't take 90. Do not take 90 minutes to go through a 27-minute meeting. Whenever it's over, let it be done. Let them get back to I know we want to hang out, and there might be a time that we invest in time like that, but let them get back to their days. Let them get back to pursuing the mission. Okay. So only utilize the time that is needed. Meetings, if you think about it, meetings are expensive. So all the time that I spend with Leah in meetings and I'm just hanging out. And I do some of that intentionally because it matters to me that she likes me as a person and as a leader. So I invest in that, and I do some of that intentionally. But every now and then I just get to talking and hanging out and just kind of fluffing around. But I got to realize in the back of my mind, that's costing me. Meetings are expensive. Now, this is one employee I'm referring to. Imagine, you have 100 top faculty, tally that paycheck up. They're expensive. Now they're worth investing in if it's an effective and efficient meeting. So do meetings intentionally. Okay. Only utilize the time that is needed, but meetings matter. Good meetings are good. Bad meetings, bad. You're not just have a meeting to have a meeting and call it productive when it wasn't productive. It's a waste of time. Don't just have busy meetings. Have an agenda, have a clear purpose. Okay. A leader doesn't just have answers. They have questions. Asking something like, what do you think? What do you think about it? And watch the gold arise in your room. Be a gold miner. Dig the gold out of your team. Get to know them a little bit by the way of questions. Leaders know how to ask good questions. Provoke the room. And sometimes the most quiet are the most thoughtful. So call on them. Maybe you're one of the quiet ones on this call. But you probably remember a couple of times when a leader has called on you and you're like, oh my goodness, me? Somebody actually wants to hear me? And you got to open up and share your heart. And it probably amazed some people around you. Some of y'all having flashbacks right now. It probably caught the attention of people because they're like, I didn't even know that person talked. Just because I'm not outspoken and an extrovert doesn't mean I'm not wise, right? It doesn't mean I don't carry gold. There's a reason why you're in the room. Your voice matters. You bring something to the table. You bring something to the room. That's why you're there. So just let's flip it around now. We are the leader in the meeting. There are reasons why you have those people in your room, in a digital space or physical space. So call on them. Prove to the team. Not that you need to prove. It's not a good word. Show the team. Put them on display. Show them why they're there. Let them impress everybody else the way they impress you. It's pretty cool. Okay. Sometimes the most quiet are the most thoughtful. There was an intern that we had a while back, and she hardly said 2 words all semester. And I remember one day I got her on Instagram Live, and we asked her a question, and she just absolutely came alive. And I almost had to pull my car over. I was blown away. And I said, man, it took me this long to dig the gold. And I had some personal leadership regret. So let's just not wait that long to call on people, to unpack the gift. They're not all going to be outspoken. Okay. This is a big one. People don't mind giving their time as long as they're not wasting their time. So maximize it and honor it. It's costly, as I mentioned a moment ago, financially, and their time. It ought to matter to us. We need to honor that. We need to have a clear purpose and agenda. We need to walk into meetings saying, if we get one thing out of today, I want it to be this. Have a clear destination and ending point. Again, I think my big point here is don't just have meetings to have them, but we ought to have them in some form or another, as long as they're intentional and they have a clear purpose and a clear agenda. And then, of course, ending on a bright note. So people will typically remember how they felt at the dismissal of something. So you want to swing it up. So even if you did do a little bit of a housekeeping thing at the end, a correctional moment, ending on a bright note, something like, but I know if I know anything of this team, I know that this team is going to do whatever it takes. I've seen it in you season after season, quarter after quarter, and I believe in every one of you, and you are all absolutely incredible. And it's such an honor to have you in this room. And I'm excited for where this company is going. Our days are very bright. Our days ahead are greater than the days behind us. And it just kind of taking this rally type moment, ending it on a bright note and swinging it up and say, I love you, bless you and have a great day, and dismiss them, etc. But always ending on a bright note, because they'll leave like, did we just get corrected? But I feel so encouraged. And of course, you don't always have to do these correctional things, but you get my point. Just swinging it up, ending on a bright note. Okay. Effective team communication. Effective team communication. I'll say it again. Effective communication that works. Okay. Organizations rise and fall on leadership. Maxwell said this some time ago. I'm sure a lot of us have heard this one. Organizations rise and fall on leadership. But watch this. Teams rise and fall on communication. It's a big point. In other words, weak communication is weak leadership. I have to consistently ask myself, am I communicating? Am I communicating effectively, clearly, concisely, precisely? Or am I exemplifying weak leadership because I have weak communication? And weak leadership equals a weak organization. Maybe it's not your vision, mission, strategy, or a team that's the issue. Maybe it's simply our communication that's the issue. Maybe that's the missing link of what's happening. Okay. Here are a few things to communicate to your teams when it comes to expectations, whether it's in a digital space or on site or, an event or something like that. Here are 4 things to communicate. Just as an example, case in point, we need to always communicate when to be there. When to be there. So again, this goes in whatever space that you are gathering. Communicate to them when to be there. We shouldn't say around 6 o'clock. We should say precisely at 6, we're ready to go. And really communicating to your team, we want to be early because I'm sure you've heard it. To be early is on time. To be on time is late. So when to be there. Number 2, where to go. So where do they go when they get to that space? And don't just say, meet me on campus. Specifically say, meet me at the West Wing coffee shop. Precisely at 6, ready to go. Be very clear about where they should go when they get there. Number 3, what to do. They will have so much more fulfillment and joy if you have set them up for a win. Communicating very clearly on what they do when they get to that place when you told them to be there. Number 4, when to leave. Okay. This is one of those things that, again, you want them to end on a bright note. You don't want them to end with a friction point or with any confusion. When they stand around and they say, okay, when did they say we could leave? They've had a great night up to this point, but now they're confused. So they're leaving on a darker note, right? A confused note. I'm not really sure. Can we leave? Can we not? And then they decide to leave and they drive away thinking, oh, maybe I need to U-turn. Maybe I couldn't leave yet, whatever. Just being very clear. Okay, this is the time that you can leave when all your duties are done or when this time hits, whatever that is for them, communicating that expectation very clearly. Clear, effective communication matters. Okay, so when to leave. What we think is over communication is likely effective communication. I'd rather over communicate and get on their nerves with it than not communicate enough. And you are even more frustrated that you didn't know something, right? So what you think is over communication is likely effective communication. Questions to think through when it comes to communicating with your team. What can be an email? Maybe it doesn't need to be a meeting. What can be a text? What needs to be a meeting? And you decide these. You're the leader. What needs to be a meeting? What needs to be a face-to-face? When do I actually need to see your nonverbal communication? Because that is 55% of communication. So when do we need to have an actual, dialogue type setting? When do we need to be in that setting? What can be a hallway informative or hallway conversation? Sometimes you can just, give information in passing. And then who is the correct and initial source to go to? So making sure that as you expect them to honor the chain, the communication flow, I would say as a leader, we need to honor that as well. We can't bypass the system that we expect of them. So who is the correct and initial source to go to? Okay. All right. I just want to close by sharing a couple of thoughts with you in a quick story. And that's it. And we're done for the day. I will just read this though. In closing, you are making a difference. And I just wanted to personally thank you for making a difference, for being a leader. And I've named this company Valor because Valor means bravery and warlike courage. And if there was ever a day and age where we need leaders of valor, valorous leaders, it's now. And I know everybody probably says that because it's their era that they're existing in, but I'm just saying it, and I mean it with all my heart, that we need leaders of great warlike courage in seasons like this, in a society we live in. And beyond it all, our leadership, our aim is always to impact people. At least I hope as a leader, that's your aim, not for anything else. But thank you for doing what you do, for leading people, for serving people. Thank you for pursuing servant leadership over positional leadership. Thank you for being brave. Thank you for the sacrifices that you've made along the way for the sake of people, because people will always be our why. It will always be our why. Period. There's a story that I love about the starfish, and I used to have it taped to my desk years ago, and there are many renditions of the story, but my version is with emphasis added, a little bit of drama in it. The story goes like this. There was a dad who took his family to the beach, a couple kids and his wife, and his young boys looked down the shore of the beach and saw this man doing these weird movements with his arms. It was a little bit odd, and it was honestly making the kids kind of anxious. They didn't really know what was happening. So the dad, being the protector that he was, he began to approach this man that was doing the crazy movements with his arms. And as the dad got closer, he approached him initially to confront him with some sort of intense tone. But as he got closer, he began to laugh, because he realized what this man on the beach was doing was one by one throwing these starfish back in the water. And that there had been thousands of starfish that had washed up on the shore. So that's why the man was laughing, because the father was laughing because the father actually looked at the man and said, "Sir, what are you doing?" He said, "Sir, do you really think you're going to make a difference in all these starfish?" He said, "You could probably spend the next week out here and you would hardly make a dent in all these starfish that have washed up on the shore." But the crazy man's response is what I love. The man picks up a starfish, looks at the dad, and says, "Sir, I understand what you're saying, and I get your point, but it made a difference for this one." And throws it in the water, picks up another starfish, looks at the starfish, looks at the dad, and says, "And sir, it made a difference for this one." And one by one continued to give that same response to the dad. And I was thinking about leadership, and that's leadership. We are the crazy man on the beach, one by one, doing our best to make a difference in the starfish and people who we serve. So don't let the size of your reach dictate the significance of your impact. Maybe you're not reaching thousands. Maybe you are. That's great. But maybe you're just reaching a few hundred or a few. The size of your impact is really what matters, because if we continue to serve people, we serve our tomorrow. We make our societies and our streets and our world a better place for our kids and grandkids to grow up in. We are changing people's lives today for the sake of our future and for the sake of their future. That's why we do what we do as leaders. Thank you for being leaders of valor. Thank you for being leaders of courage. Thank you for being leaders of bravery. Continue to move forward with that great courage, move forward with that great Valor and continue to serve people because it's worth it. You know it. It's why you're on this call today. It's why you do what you do, because you understand that people are why we do what we do. Thank you so much for being on this call today. I'm so encouraged to see you. I wish I could have seen your face. I know this webinar sets it up a little bit differently, and I know that there are going to be people who are watching this playback, and I hope you are encouraged. And I would love to dialogue more with you about these things that we talked about, or about anything else leadership. I do want it to be clear on what we offer at Valor. We do offer a weekly group coaching every Monday morning, 9 a.m. Central Standard Time. We meet via Zoom and we do a group coaching setting. That is one of our premier programs. That's something that we put a lot of focus and attention on every single week. And you get involved in a Slack channel, so you have community as well. Again, I know what it's like to feel lonely. And you don't have anybody pouring into your life and encouraging you and equipping you and coaching you in your leadership. I also know what it's like to not have, anybody around me, or you be in a crowded room, but you still feel lonely. I know what that's like as well. We want to provide coaching and community for you. And that's what we do in the weekly group coaching. We talk 30 to 40 minutes, and then we provoke some conversation. I take some questions, and it's just a really good time. And then you get access to all the archived videos on our internet on our service as well, on our YouTube channel. And that is a private channel that only you have access to. Of course, we do provide one-on-one leadership coaching. We have a couple different packages. We have, single sessions. We have 8-week programs. We have 6-month bundles that we do. Of course, we can talk more about what you're specifically looking for in those type of settings. We can go really deep in your story and in your context in the one-on-one setting. And we do 1-hour Zoom calls. And then we do voice memos, texts, occasional phone calls. I get you a couple books. I prescribe you podcasts. I walk through all that together. I even have a program to where I put your schedule for 4 weeks through a boot camp. Literally, I write your sun up to sundown for 4 straight weeks. That is called the Executive Reset. We could talk more about that if we get on a call together. And of course, I do work with teams. I do consulting for organizations, all the way from churches to health clubs to social media agencies. I mean, just whatever. I feel like we could really bring some value to whatever organization you're a part of. And I do want to kind of throw this in there as well. We also have a company. I'm a part of a company called Hustle. We are based in downtown McKinney, Texas. Okay, I'm currently in Louisiana, but Hustle, you can go to hustlehq.com, HUSLHQ.com. That is strictly business coaching. Okay, so strictly business coaching. And so Valor provides a lot of the leadership coaching and consulting and team development, but Hustle HQ, HUSLHQ provides the business coaching element of it. So if you want specifically business consulting, then we could talk more about that on a phone call as well. So I do work with teams as far as leadership. I can help you with conflict resolution, establishing culture, public speaking, whatever you want to talk about. We have probably a resource or two for that. And of course, I do provide ministry coaching as well. So if you are in the ministry, specifically if you are a pastor, I do work with you. I help you grow, scale, develop your ministry. I do help you when it comes to speaking, etc. With that. But anyways, I would love to talk with you. You can definitely book a call. I am running a special for all of you who are on this webinar today when it comes to my group coaching program. You can book a call simply by just going to the Instagram where you heard about this webinar, clicking on my link tree right there. It'll take you to my site or a form, and you can just set up a call right there. We can have a quick 15-minute call and talk about what you and or your organization is in need of in this season. Again, in the meantime, bless you. Continue to serve people. And I truly hope, Leah and I both, on behalf of Valor, truly hope you have a wonderful week, an incredible day. God bless you. It's so good to meet you. Goodbye.